Not my story, but my mom's. This was when she was still living in the Philippines before I was born, around 40-odd years ago. She had gone home after a funeral with her cousin and two brothers, just to have a bath and change clothes because of the heat. She said that when she walked into the house, it suddenly got extremely cold, and literally the entire group she was with felt it in an instant. It was basically like if somebody cranked the AC, then supercharged it to turn the whole house into a freezer, which was bizarre because, well, they just didn't have AC at the time. They're like, whatever, maybe it's just us imagining things, when they suddenly hear running around upstairs, which was odd because everyone else was still at the funeral parlor. The group turned to follow the sound as it passed over their heads and over to the staircase, thinking that somebody was going to come down. Instead, they see an empty plastic bag gently float down to the first step at the landing. Except instead of hearing the nothing expected from a plastic bag, every time the plastic bag hit a step on the staircase, it made a thunk sound, like somebody with big-ass work boots was stomping down the steps. Before the bag made it to the ground, the entire group ran away screaming, "Fuck that!" Another story was when I went on a ghost hunt with some friends at the local aviation museum. I wasn't expecting anything. The building is pretty much brand new and there's nothing particularly special about the area surrounding it, other than the fact that the exhibits had largely been donated by people who spent their entire lives on these planes. There was nothing that would make you think, "Yep, this building is definitely haunted." Except things kept happening throughout the tour that just confused the crap out of me because I had zero explanation for it. Fairly early into the night, I kept seeing people running around on the balcony and ducking behind objects and walls, like they were trying to hide but still watch whatever was going on downstairs. At one point, I even tried to call out to the person or persons upstairs because it looked like kids playing. It got to the point that a guide asked me who I was talking to because we were the only people in the building and there shouldn't have been anyone else there at all. Fuck it, whatever. Maybe I'm imagining things because of the echoes and talking from all the other people in the room spooking me out or something. We go into a small isolated spot with an airframe that was pulled from a lake about 80 years after crashing and decide to try out the Estes method. Of course, I'm the one to go under. The feeling wearing those headphones was just so deeply uncomfortable, and it felt like I was there for ages. It genuinely felt like somebody had dunked me into a tank with ice water up to my ears for hours and hours. My hands were shaking so much by the end. And this building was fairly warm. It was midwinter in the Canadian prairies, and I usually run very warm, enough that I'm sweating in -20 weather while everyone else is bundled up to their eyelids. The heater was cranked high, so even my friend who runs cold all the time was struggling with the heat. I'm just sitting there shivering enough that my hands were hurting, saying things whenever I heard them on the spirit box, and spooking the fuck out of my friends. Finally, I'm let out from headphones duty, and my friend touches my hand for an instant, only to jump back because my hands were ice cold. Like my skin was actually cold enough that other people could feel it off me. But oddly enough, within a minute or two of taking the headphones off and walking away from the area, I'm back to sweating like crazy, as if nothing happened. Doesn't even stop there. We go to another area and figure, hell, we might as well do the Estes method again since we got so much weird shit the first time with me. My friend goes under. I decide to just hang out on the outside and be annoying. It was ridiculous because it genuinely felt a bit like I was being targeted. She would say something like, "I'm going to touch you," and I'd suddenly feel somebody grab my sleeve and pull hard. Or even things like slapping on my hands and shoulder, enough that I felt pain. No scratches, but at least a couple of bruises the next day. Finally, as I'm going to get up and move to another area, somebody yanks on my ponytail hard enough to make me jump. I pulled my hair back, turned to my friend, and asked her, "Are you messing with me? Did you pull my hair?" And she's like, "Why would I even do that? That's ridiculous. Are you okay?" Yeah, at this point, I was just done. Fuck the aviation museum.
Before I get into the weird happenings at the nursery I work at, I have to start by saying I cannot and will not disclose the name of the nursery I work at. In fear of being found out, I am documenting the events that occur. For the Americans reading, a nursery is a place parents send their kid to before reception starts at age 5. I think like kindergarten. They pay for us to feed, change, entertain, and give us sort of education in their early years. Not like spelling and maths kind of education, more of a how to stop being a little shit before you go to school kind of education. In my nursery, we look after kids as young as 6 months, and they can be in our care 5 days a week until they turn 5 and go off to school. Doing this job, it's kind of hard not to grow some form of paternal attachment to some of the kids. In a way, you become a second set of parents to these children, while their real parents work their 9 to 5s. They rely on you and have to completely trust you, as you are taking care of their kids. I have been a nursery practitioner for roughly 3 years. The nursery I work at was built in the early 1900s, 1809, I think. It was originally a church, but after a fire in 2018, it got renovated into a nursery. The original structure and bricks are all the same, so it still looks like a small church from the outside. But on the inside, it's separated into under twos upstairs and the older ones downstairs. Downstairs, it has a small dining area, 2 inside playrooms, and a large garden with more toys than they know what to do with. While upstairs, it has a large playroom, a smaller dining room, and a nap room. Also, the staff room and offices are upstairs. I work downstairs the majority of the time. I find it less stressful. Now you guys understand the setup, I can get to why I originally wanted to post these stories. Shedman. There is a gray brick shed at the bottom of the garden. It's always locked, as it has toilet cleaner and other things kids aren't really meant to eat. Now and again, when there is only one child around the shed, I will walk over and they will be sitting down facing the gray brick wall and muttering to themselves, not playing with any of the overpriced toys or with another kid, just sitting there, staring at the wall and quietly talking to themselves. I would go up to him or her, crouch down and ask, "What are you up to?" And without a doubt, every fucking time, they will say, "Talking to the man in the shed." Sometimes I'd try to ask what they were talking about, but normally they just get up and run away to play with their peers. Though one time, after I saw a kid doing it again, I went up to them and asked who they were talking to. I got the same response I always do, talking with the man who lives in the shed. But this time, I followed it up with a different question. Who is the man in the shed? And I'm shitting you not, but this 3-year-old kid looked at me and said, "You know, the man that looks like a bear with the monkey feet." After that interaction, I thought, fuck that, and stopped asking questions to the kids. I brought it up with my coworkers who have been here longer than me, and all they could say on the matter was, "Oh yeah, Shedman we call him. Kind of an inside joke now. You'll get used to their imaginations in this creepy building playing tricks on you." That was the first strange thing that happened. After the second or third, I started writing these things down. I thought I would share them with the internet as a sort of coping mechanism, I guess. Dress up. In one of the playrooms, we have a dress-up corner full of all the usuals. Princess dresses, doctor outfits, knockoff superhero costumes, and even a few cheap glittery Halloween ones. The kids love the dress-up corner. I mean, what child doesn't like playing pretend? I walked into the playroom once and there were 3 little girls who were around 4 at the time, playing together, trying on outfits, and pretending to be all numbers of characters. When one of them said, "Let's be witches." We have 2 pink and black witch Halloween costumes, so I get ready to break up the inevitable fight that will happen when 3 children want to all wear the same costume. But there was no fight. One of the girls agreed excitedly before taking herself out of the room, while the other 2 stayed and with a bit of help put on fluffy pink tutus, black cloaks, and oversized witches' hats. Then, together, we went to find the 3rd girl to try and come up with a makeshift costume so she wouldn't feel left out. But when we went to the other room, the girl was standing in the corner, not moving, just staring at us as we flew in on our broomsticks. I thought she must have been upset about not having a costume like the other 2, so I approached the kid and crouched down to her level. I asked, "What are you up to?" And she smiled and cheerfully said, "I'm the witch." I was relieved that I didn't have to deal with the 50th tantrum that day, but she followed it up with, "I wish I can crawl on the roof like her, but my arms don't reach that high." I swiftly changed the subject, as I decided dress-up time was over. Sleepwalking. At around 12 every day, the younger kids get taken for naps. They each have their own set of sheets and a mat to sleep on. While nap time is going on, a staff member has to be in the room at all times. We do something called sleep checks every 10 minutes to make sure the kids are still asleep and to check if anything is covering their face that could cause a risk. Normally, this would be the time to catch up on parents' messages or upload on the app what they have eaten so far in the day to keep whoever is informed in the loop on what their child has been up to. On this specific day, I was the one doing said sleep checks. I was sitting in the quiet room, white noise playing in the background, and catching up on some uploading. When the white noise machine stopped emitting that soothing static sound, I got up and fiddled with it for a moment before realizing that I couldn't hear breathing. When you have 12 toddlers asleep in a room, the sound of a small breathing choir is very normal. But without the white noise machine going, I could hear that there wasn't any noise to be heard. Upon spinning around, I was absolutely horrified to see 12 empty mats, all looking like there was a small person just laying on them. Some still have the indents where the child was sleeping mere moments ago. There were still blankets and comforters on the mats, hairbands from small ponytails, pacifiers, socks, and the clothes that the children were put to sleep in. I sprinted over, throwing back blankets and turning over mats, making sure this wasn't some weird game of hide and seek. But there was absolutely nothing. I thought I had lost my mind, so I sprinted out of the room, causing quite the noise as I went. My coworkers were all terrified when I told them that 12 kids under my care had suddenly gone missing. But upon running back to the room, there they all were again. 12 sleeping toddlers, just as they were not even 15 minutes ago. I tried to explain that 1 second they were there and the next they had vanished. But of course, no one believed me. I mean, how could they? Safe to say, I got sent home early that day with the stated cause being sleep deprivation. But I know what I saw. I know that those kids had somehow no-clipped through the floor, leaving everything behind. After this incident, I refused to be put on sleep checks ever again. In truth, I was scared the next time they disappeared, they wouldn't come back again. I hope someone else has had similar happenings at their nurseries or daycares, and if you have, please let me know. I have a 7 a.m. start tomorrow, so I'm going to get some sleep, but I will post more of the happenings as soon as I can.
Okay, hear me out before you judge. This was a few years ago. My wife left to see her adult children and grandbabies. A little background. I'm a big dude who spent 26 years in the military, and my hobbies include weightlifting and martial arts. I am well versed in firearms, etc. I'm not generally easily spooked. I ain't scared of shit. Me and the dogs were having a guys' night, watching some shows, etc. I was in my living room, dogs on the couch. They're spoiled AF, by the way. Chillin', eating snacks, etc. Out of nowhere, the microwave above the stove turns on. No reason. The dog's sort of alert. I go in there and think it's weird, but nothing crazy. I turned the time to 0 and made sure it was off. Meanwhile, the dogs won't take their eyes off the kitchen and act like they see something. I walked back into the living room and sat down, and a minute later, it starts up again. The dogs are looking at the kitchen with increased interest, not having settled down and acting like something was in there. I turn it off again, check everything, and go to sit back down. Long story short, this happened 2 more times, and the dogs were growling and barking with hackles up by this time. They were looking at something. I trust them more than some humans. I was getting freaked out by now. I unplugged the microwave and told the boys we might be going to the Motel 6. If that would have happened again, we were out, and I wasn't going back without a priest. Mama came home the next day, and she made fun of me, and those dumb dogs didn't back me up or corroborate my story at all. They were too excited to see her. They just rolled over so she could rub their tummies. I was happy to see her too, because now she could protect me. She rubbed my tummy later. Anyways, that friggin' thing is still unplugged 2 years later. My wife still thinks I'm overreacting. IDGF. Those dogs were growling and super alerted. They wouldn't go with me to the kitchen, and they usually stick with you everywhere, including the bathroom. So annoying. That made it so much worse. I don't know what it was, and may have had a perfectly normal explanation, but I was getting the willies pretty bad.